I came from a really bad, broken home, had an extremely dysfunctional childhood. My parents divorced when I was 6. By the time I was 16, my dad was getting married for the 4th time. My mom had been in a series of relationships. She married one more time after my dad. But I said goodbye to a lot of steps along the way, step brothers,
That must
stepsisters.
have really hurt.
It was traumatic.
Yeah.
It messed me up real bad. I was definitely a basket case by the time I was in high school. And I watched a podcast that you guys did the other day that was pretty heavily onto the topic of relationships. I think and it's interesting to be on this side of life now and be talking to people that are, essentially half my age. Because
Thank you for your service.
Because one of the things I've noticed is that society has definitely changed in this country so much over the last 25 years.
Well, 23 is like pretty normal back then to get married,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
normal, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now it's getting older.
Yeah, the latest statistic I read said that the majority of young adults are now not getting married until they're like 26, 27, 28. And personally, I think that's great. I think that's hopefully going to get us back onto the right track, because I think the biggest problem with young people getting into marriage, and you said something off camera before we started that got me thinking about this, but one of the things I think contributes to that dysfunction in our society is that, for one thing, the frontal lobe in a male doesn't really fully develop until they're about
older.
25, 26 years old.
Really? I thought it was in the 30s.
So here's the thing about it. There are variables that kind of determine whether or not that frontal lobe fully develops. And one of the main things is what was that adult's childhood like? Because if that child has gone through a lot of trauma, one of the ways the frontal lobe develops is by consistently making good choices, using your rationale. It matures that part of the brain a lot faster. So by the time, you're 21, 22, 23, you're pretty much ready for a serious relationship or a marriage. But now, because families have been broken down so much over the last 3 decades, and kids are, in my opinion, more dysfunctional now than they were in my generation, I think the frontal lobe possibly develops even slower than what it did in my generation. But again, I'm biased because I came from that really effed up background, which is why I said I had no business getting married at 23.
Which it's honestly crazy because I looked up the statistics for it. I believe 56% of the marriages that end in divorce, the person will get married almost right after.
Really? I've never heard
within
of
the next
that.
like 3 to 5 years, they'll get married again.
Do you think it's because they don't know how to be alone?
Yes,
Ooh, that's a good
100%.
And do you think that stems back from more of their childhood trauma?
I think I think most problems that most adults have, especially, I'm not talking about like you have a bad season in life and you go through something, unfortunate. I'm talking about adults who make the same bad dysfunctional decisions year after year. Every few years, they're in and out of relationships. They either have a hang up where they're not willing to commit, or they have a hang up where they're just not healthy enough to be in a relationship. But because their brain has become so accustomed to just going on to the next one, think of it this way.
It's because they don't want to deal with the
They don't heal.
process of healing.
They never heal. So think of it this way. Let's say you go out today and you break your leg. Okay. What's the first thing that's going to happen? You're going to go to the doctor. Doctor's going to tell you, well, it needs to be in a cast at a minimum, probably 6 to 8 weeks. And so let's